Hi, guys. So, this week we're going to talk about immigration and what all that entails, how it affects agriculture, and just kind of everything in between. So, first thing, or like always, I will let you guys know about assignments at the end of this lesson, so just pay attention. All right. So, firstly, what is the issue? So, the issue is basically as we're looking at illegal versus legal immigration and open border policy versus stricter border policy. That's what we're looking at. And when we talk border, we don't just mean the southern border. We mean every border around the United States. Okay. So, and if you look at this, it's what immigrants have made up of the U.S. population. It's about 14%, and that's not including the illegal immigrants. That's talking strictly legal. And then we look at the population of immigrants in agriculture, and that is a large population too. And then what does illegal immigration consist of? Well, it's basically immigrants coming across with no legal process. Okay, they just come into the country. There's no way to identify them. There's no way to know that they're there. It's just they're undocumented. Okay, and legal immigration consists of immigrants coming to the U.S. legally. There's documentation of that. They've gone through the proper channels. They've done everything the right way. So they're here legally. So why is the issue important? Well, we look at the border wall. The border wall, and if you don't know what that is, it's being built on the southern border of the United States. It's basically we're building a wall between Mexico and the United States. And the reason they're doing that is they want to stop illegal immigration from Mexico. Okay, because people may say, "Oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, there's not that many." Well, they're wrong. I mean, just know that there's a lot of illegal immigrants trying to cross into the United States every day. I don't know the exact numbers. I don't know how many have crossed, but there's been a lot. So that's the point of the border wall. Now you may look at it and you may hear, well, you hear in the media that President Trump, it's his wall. They call it Trump's wall. They don't like that Trump has spearheaded it and has fast-tracked it and is actually getting it built, because this was not President Trump's doing. If you look back at the Obama administration, the Bush administration, the Clinton administration, they all talked about border policy. They all had this thought in mind. And actually, the border wall was started during Obama's administration. Okay, it was being built in parts of Arizona, in California. So, I mean, it was being built then before Trump ever even took office. Okay, but now that he's in office, he's fast-tracked it. He's really tried to get it built as quickly as possible. And I mean, they've done a good job of getting it built. It's going to be finished. I don't know when, but it's moving a lot quicker than it was. So why is the issue important? Because the ag industry could lose laborers if we lose out on illegal immigrants. If the restrictions stick and we if they get deported, then we might lose some of those laborers that work for the ag industry. Okay, and that's something people bring up is, should we even there should be no restrictions. It should be open border, but we'll get more into that. The migrant workers that are there illegally, they could lose their livelihood if they're deported, living in America. And then it could have a negative effect on ag production. Again, it's kind of the same thing as the second bullet point. Could lose laborers. The federal government is involved. Presidential administrations, Senate, Congress, they all have their hands in border policy and foreign immigration policy. The southern states, where most of those immigrants come to work, they're involved. Ag producers in those southern states are involved. Immigrants themselves are involved, and then consumers from those products that those producers make. So how can the issue be defined? It can be defined to use migrant workers in U.S. ag to assist in labor and production. And you got to ask these two questions when you give that statement. Well, are the migrants legal or illegal? And should there be reform to allow immigrants to come to the U.S. illegally without repercussions? And that's that open border policy that we talked about. Some people think that we need to open our borders completely, let whoever wants to come in without any documentation. No visas, no travel visas, no work visas, none of that. They just get to come in to the United States and they're there. And to me, that's not the right way to do things. I think to get into our country, you should be documented. You should come through a legal process, a legal channel. And I know it can be tough, but I think if it wasn't worth doing, you wouldn't do it. So, that's just my thought. People have different opinions. That's mine. But that's what some people think, is that there should be no repercussions for people who come in illegally or come in without any documentation. That could cause issues, though, because there's people that don't like the United States that would be okay with trying to terrorize our country. And I think if we get open border policy, that could be a real outcome if we have open border policy. So what's the historical background? It's been ongoing ever since the country started. We're a country of immigrants. They call the United States the Great Melting Pot because we have so many different nationalities, so many different ethnicities in our country, and that's a good thing. We've all descended from immigrants. My family immigrated from Germany and went from Virginia to Tennessee to New Mexico, and it, stopped in places all along the way. But they did it through a legal process, and that's, I think, the main thing you got to remember is if it's through a legal process, it's good. So when we're talking the issue that we're talking, and we're mainly talking immigrants from Mexico to the United States, it's been more of an issue since the 60s because we saw a boom in agriculture from after World War II. We saw a boom in agriculture, and so ag producers needed help. They needed workers. They needed people to work the fields. They needed people to help maximize their production. So that's where these immigrants started coming in. And ever since then, there's been some politics surrounding it. There always is. And then in the 70s and 80s, the legal immigrants, and that's the main thing to remember here, the legal immigrants created unions. They organized protests and strikes against low wages and no benefits, no anything. They organized those strikes so that they could be compensated fairly, they could get benefits, they could provide for their family, and they got it done. They did that, and they moved. After that happened, other states, the rest of the nation, kind of followed suit, and so for the legal immigrants that work in ag, they get compensated fairly, and they have those benefits. They have health benefits and that kind of stuff, so that they can help provide for their family. Because before that they were getting paid next to nothing and had no benefits and were just told to go work, and it was probably pretty tough for them. So it was a good thing that happened. We look at the economy crash in 2008 and how that affected immigration. And it affected immigration because it was, economy crash. It's harder to pay people, harder to get, people to work for you, anything like that. And so that's kind of what happened there, and that's how it slowed it. Today, 70% of total farm labor is performed by migrant workers. And that's a pretty accurate statement. I mean, even if you look at like the dairies in the area, I mean, there are going to be you're going to hear people speaking Spanish, people that work with the cattle, that go feed, that farm, whatever it may be. You're gonna see that here, but the ones that are here, they've all come legally. They've gone through the proper channels. They've done everything right. So what caused the issue? Well, that would be ag producers using migrant farm workers to do labor for farm type jobs. Okay, so that's kind of the cause of the issue, and then you look at then they started compensating them pretty low. You look at the U.S. foreign policy and what that's like, and when we talk about U.S. foreign policy, we're going to talk about Obama and Trump. So President Obama, when he took office, his immigration policy was pretty relaxed. It kind of reflected some open border policies. Not to say that he wasn't. He also had some of the same thoughts that Trump had, where you have to come through documented, and he said that in interviews. And now, if you look at it, it's Trump is saying some of the same stuff, and he's disagreeing. So, he had some relaxed immigration policies, though, whereas President Trump, he that was one of his big speeches, big points for his presidency, was he wanted to be tough on immigration. He wanted to restrict it, and he's done that. And he's restricted, the illegal immigration. He hasn't restricted the legal immigration, because it's just been, he's just really worked to try and do everything the right way, and not allow illegal immigrants to come across. And to me, that's a good thing. To me, if you want to immigrate, that's great. Just make sure you go through the proper channels, the proper legal channels, and do it that way. So what are the risks here? Well, if we open the borders, that allows a lot of immigrants with hidden agendas, and we talked about, we could see some terrorist activity or things of that nature, which would be devastating for our nation. Could crash the economy. It could destroy our ag production. It could directly affect American freedoms. By allowing them to have more freedoms, it restricts ours. It's kind of a backwards deal there. So what are the benefits? So if we get lots of migrant workers in agriculture, it could cause a boom in agriculture production, and that's a big benefit. That is, there's no doubting it. That would be a huge benefit. But is it worth those risks? Is there a strong disagreement on how the issue should be involved? And we've kind of talked about this. There's people that want open borders. They want to let people in. They don't want documentation. They just think that people should be able to come in free will. And I don't know that that's the best thing. And then you look at people who want a more restricted policy, close the borders. They want to have the wall up. And if that wall gets built completely, I don't know that it comes down. So that's hopefully what Trump will do. We'll get it built. So when we're talking about the summary and we're just kind of summarizing everything in this, you got to look at open borders versus closed borders. That's the big issue. How does it affect agriculture? How does immigration affect agriculture? How does it affect agriculture production? and in what ways, and how does agriculture affect foreign policy? Can it affect foreign policy? You got to ask those questions when you're summarizing this. So for this week, guys, I'm gonna post a discussion with this video, and then on Tuesday I will post a quiz, and that's it for the week. That's all you'll have. Okay, so Monday discussion video, Tuesday quiz, and then nothing the rest of the week. If you guys have any questions, just message me through Wisdom, text me, whatever's easiest. So other than that, guys, that's all for this week. We'll talk to y'all next week.